those who haven't earned it, who either lose it or abuse it. And their story I've told of the old Roman who, after he was dead, used to sit as a ghost in his house and watch his children squander his funds. It would be a very unhappy experience, but it is the only experience. No matter what we leave behind, someone will ultimately abuse it, even if we leave it to an institution. The institution will change in the course of time. There is no solution. So we are following a will-o'-the-wisp, and in the sense of accumulation, we have gradually built up a world of competition leading to war, crime, and all kinds of misdemeanors, and we have to sit in the midst of this. The thief has to be afraid that he will be robbed in turn. There is no safety in anything. Yet the world keeps right on going. Our great codes do not correct the situation. Our great universities do not help young people to find out what is valuable and necessary. No one is interested in the ingredients of natural and simple happiness. Everyone wants gain and profit and thinks of happiness in terms of accumulations rather than in terms of internal maturity. So Buddha was pretty much right in assuming that we, somewhere in the remote time of things, headed civilization in the wrong direction. And no matter how much we have talked and fought, no matter how many great reformers and heroes have arisen among us, we have not been able to get progress back on the track. It is as though we had built a Grand Canyon of the Colorado, starting as a little dribble of water in the wrong direction, and now hopelessly locked within a canyon more than a mile deep. It's the same way with all these things that we do. We cannot accomplish peace because it interferes with our success or somebody else's success. We cannot reform without being subject to martyrdom. Everything is locked within a process that is going nowhere. And with nuclear fission at our doorstep, Buddha's statements have a new and tremendous validity, namely that the future of our own survival is in our own hands. Now, Buddhism has one factor which it took from Hinduism, which has had an important bearing on this, and that is the doctrine of reincarnation. Reincarnation is a combination of hope and further fear. It is hope in the sense that it gives us more time to make the adjustments. But it also carries the factor of fear because it has the law of consequence locked in it. Namely, that as we have lived and as we have earned, so it will be paid. Therefore, we are all under a certain responsibility for the outcome of conduct. The immediate karmic reaction of most mistakes is right here in this world, where we see these mistakes bringing suffering. But there are long-range mistakes that do not solve themselves so easily. And the most important of these is our own human character. We can leave behind, for a while at least, some of the consequences of our unthoughtful conduct. But we must take the imperfection of our own natures with us and be prepared to come back and do it again, unless the enlightenment and change of realization occurs within ourselves. So Buddha sets out the pattern that each individual is capable of an adjustment that will last forever, an improvement which will add to the eternal growth of his own nature. Suffering does not produce growth directly. Suffering is growing the hard way. Suffering is the individual learning from his mistakes. But there is a direct way of growth, in which the individual can learn from having done things well. And this form of growth is painless. The reward of right action is just as real and powerful as the penalty for wrong action. Each person has to work this out in his own nature. So in every way, Buddha ties up the difficulties of our time. Indigestion has something to do with international relationships. The probability that the person is going to have a coronary is due to conditions in which society, being benighted, impels him to follow a wrong example. There seems to be nothing short of a universal reformation that can change this. But Buddha also realized that the talk of universal reformation is a difficult conversation. It has too much in it. Therefore, the person, having only control of himself, must work first upon himself and try to liberate himself from that which is abnormal and unnatural. He also makes a very interesting observation, directly or indirectly through his ahats, namely that actually so few people are interested really in growth that there is not much competition in that field. No one is going to blame us if we take away from them nothing that they value. And yet in growing, we all grow and add up a great treasure of growth without anyone else in the world being poorer. Growth is the one great asset that is non-competitive. It is something that we can become wiser and wiser, but no one else will be injured unless we pervert that wisdom. So there is really no one who is going to really stand in our way and hate us simply because we try to be better. Of course, we have to be a little careful about it, because we mustn't tell them our intention. If we go around telling people that we're trying to be better, we will either be ridiculed or persecuted. But if in our conduct we are better, they will all benefit from it also. So there is very little danger to those who live well, but there is great danger to those who talk about living well. If we do it ourselves, there is a very good way of meeting the problem. So we then come to the last and most important step in Buddha's doctrine, the noble truth of the path that leads to the end of suffering. This is the reason for the rise of the Sangha, as it was called in Buddhism, or the fellowship, the assembly of the devout. This was a group of persons who were determined in themselves to live well. Buddhism has never produced any form of religious hierarchy that is comparable to other religions. It does not tell the individual that he must obey certain other persons, or that there is a vast structure that he must not vary from. The Buddhist Sangha is an assembly of persons who are determined in their own lives and in their daily actions to educate themselves in value, that they will really do the things that are necessary to bring security to themselves and improve the general state of human existence. Now, the noble truth of the path that leads to the end of suffering is the gradual transformation, reclamation, and adjustment of the mental, emotional complex within the individual. Unless we rectify the individual in his own life, we cannot bring an end to suffering. No one can make another person good. but each person can become good in his own right if he so desires. He can gradually weed out those dangerous attitudes and habits which contribute to suffering. He can do all kinds of small things every day to rescue his point of awareness from the wrong objectives. He can begin to think in terms of the Socratic moderation, for example. He will learn gradually that moderation in living in this world minimizes suffering, that immoderation maximizes it. The individual who lives the simple life makes fewer mistakes. The person who complicates his life with ulterior motives makes many mistakes. Therefore, in the Buddhist philosophy, simplicity is the key to the good life. Simplicity is the individual who is not as much concerned over what he has as he is over what he is as a human being. If value comes first, the value is in himself. There is not enough wealth in all the world to prevent misery. No individual can have so much of anything that he is free from danger and free from suffering. Today, if he has very much, he is going to be subject to mugging and burglarizing. The whole world is trying to tell him something, trying to tell him that his objectives are wrong and that these objectives are contributing to the creation of crime in society. So Buddha talked about the simple way, the Noble Eightfold Path, which leads to the perfection of all things in the law of life. This path is moderation in all appetites and the gradual simplifying of ambitions and their transformation into aspirations. The individual dreaming about being more in terms of value rather than having more. The most that the individual can ever possess in this world is himself. All other things are intangible. And he can only take with him what he is. What he has remains for others to waste. The more simple his life, the more likely he is to move quietly along the path of years, and will free his mind and his heart for those labors which are profitable in terms of growth. All the success in the world is not as important to help as the ability to make a friend and be a friend. Friendship is a greater treasure than can ever be put in a bank balance. But we do not realize this, and we have great trouble because of the banks and because of the system and because that's the way it's done. But how it happens that we have built a great system all over this world, drawing in not only the more powerful nations, but the unfolding and growing nations, to become part of a fatal situation in which there is no consideration for value. Everything is in terms of profit. And every bit of profit today is measured in terms of loss. So we are not getting there. Now that somebody 2,500 years ago should point out why we're not getting there now is very interesting, especially as it is not directly involved with preachment as we know it. It is not a case of trying to ask forgiveness for our sins. It's a problem of outgrowing them by our own efforts. It puts growth largely with the person, but the reward of growth by the person is the unfoldment of the potentials of that person. The individual who wishes to face eternity with a good hope has got to build a good life to face it with. So in the terms of the path that leads to the end of suffering, we can quietly detach ourselves through thoughtfulness Now, Buddhism is a way of thoughtfulness that is not based upon platitudes. We all hear people tell us what to do, and we usually